Everything is in motion. This is one day at a time. Everyone has cancer, and this is where I battle mine. Hey, what's up, guys? This is Cody from the Court of Cows, and welcome to my new show, Everyone Has Cancer. I guess I can still call it a new show. What are we, 4 episodes in, man? I'm a one-man show. Maybe not always a one-man show. Hopefully later down the road we're going to get some special guests. But let me go ahead and start by saying this. Are you ready? This. All right, yeah, you know how to start off with a dumb joke. So I want to start off by saying this for real. In 2001, I was diagnosed with leukemia. And in 2005, I relapsed and had it a second time. We haven't gotten that far in the story yet, but just a little spoiler alert of where we're going. Now, you might be a little scared about the title of the show, Everyone Has Cancer. If you listen to the other 3 episodes, this is going to sound like a broken record, because I'm going to tell you that, hey, don't worry, don't get your tinfoil hat on just yet. It's not a conspiracy. I'm not telling you that you have cancer yourself. What I'm letting you know is that in 2001, when I was diagnosed with cancer, and even to now, which is obviously many, many years later, I've had people over the years come up to me and tell me how strong I am and how courageous I am. And you know what strength and courage looked like from my end? It was me laying in bed, throwing up and crying most of the time, and usually being on some pretty rockin' drugs. Well, you know, if you listen to the last one, the Demerol didn't work out too great, you know, but the morphine was all right, you know, not advocating that, just saying that I don't remember much of the first time around. Remember most of it from the second time around. Again, we'll get to that. But I would always have people come up to me and tell me, you know, friends, family, tell me how strong I was and how brave I was. And, you know, I didn't see it. And, you know, it's not until I reached my adulthood that I kind of realized. Also, I'd have friends and family come up to me that would tell me something they were going through, like some kind of awful issue they had in their life, be it they, you know, someone in their life was no longer with us, be it from an accident, natural causes, or straight up, you know, just decided they couldn't take it anymore and left this world by, you know, by their own choice. By suicide or something like that, or, you know, or in an abusive relationship, or in, you know, in the throes of drugs. Man, over the years, I've had so many friends that have been like just stuck in the throes of drugs, and it's, you know, it's an addiction, but it's also more or less, it's a sickness, you know, and so my message here is that everyone has cancer. Everyone has that one thing in their life that is detrimental, that is difficult, and it is completely unique to them. It's that one thing that they have to face alone. Like a friend of mine told me after the very first episode, you can have all the tools and all the support, but when it rubber meets the road, when it comes down to it, you have to choose to go forward. And I just kind of realized that because I would have friends come up to me with, you know, like I've told you before, I got a buddy that gets, you know, he's asthmatic, not to the point of needing an inhaler, but every August comes around, he is going to have bronchitis from, you know, the 1st to the end of August. And, you know, and that's just something he's got to live with. And every time he gets it, he sounds like, oh my gosh, he sounds like he's got bronchitis. And, you know, with that, he always turns to me and says, oh, man, I'm feeling like crap. And I'm sitting there trying to be there for him and be like, oh, man, is there anything I can do for you? And he'd be like, oh, I just feel like garbage. But, hey, it's nothing compared to what you went through. You know, and that always bugged me because it would always demean whatever they were facing. You know, maybe, yeah, I'm not saying that bronchitis is just as bad as cancer. I'm saying that, you know, if I was going through like physical abuse or verbal abuse to the extent like someone has a parent that has always treated them a certain way, and maybe they were completely wrong to maybe they were loved too less, maybe they were loved a little too much by a relative, and maybe they're the the victim of rape or something like that. It's something that is completely unique to us, to each individual person, and with that, it's a road we have to go alone. Like when the doors are closed and when it's just you in the room, it's something that you have to be there for, and it's something you're going to remember for the rest of your life. And it's something I'm sorry to say, but you may end up struggling with it for the rest of your life. But like my buddy that I talked to about, hopefully I'll get her on here at some point. But she had an issue. She has a big issue with suicidal thoughts and suicidal tendencies. And that doesn't mean she's weak. It doesn't mean that she's wired different. Well, it doesn't mean that she's chemically imbalanced. It means she's just wired differently. Some people deal with it and some people don't. If you need proof of that, you take some people in a completely stressful situation and they're so incredibly insecure about what they're doing, and what they want to do is just kill themselves and get it over with. When you put another person in that, they're so insecure about their job and they're so incredibly stressed with, the job that they're having to do. Not work. I'm not talking about a paycheck, but something that they have to do. You put them in the same situation, they just kind of whine about it and continue on. Some people are just wired differently. And, that's an old saying, and I'm not trying to pass that off. I want to go a step further with that and say everybody is wired differently. Everyone has something in their life that they're going through, has gone through, or will go through that is going to define them as a person. I want to go a step further with that one and say that it's not going to define you in the fact that I had cancer when I was younger. I didn't become cancer. Okay? Like that's not something that is going to be attached to me for the rest of my life. Cancer didn't define me. It made me the person I am today. If I didn't have the problems in my life that I faced, then I wouldn't be the person I am today. It completely forges you. It's iron going into the fire. When it comes out, it is going to be a worthy blade of any battle. And you know what that's going to do for you is you may, like I said a little bit ago, you may turn around one day and wonder and try to put a definition to it and try to figure out why it happened to you, what it all meant. I touched on this briefly also. At one point, I really thought, when I was younger, trying to figure out the definition of it, I thought God was punishing me. I thought that, and this is going a little weird with it, but me personally, I thought that I wasn't a good enough Christian and God had done this to me. At one point in time, I thought that if I would have done some good stuff and more good deeds, then I would have never been diagnosed with cancer. Leukemia would have just passed me by. And obviously, as you're listening to that, me trying to figure out what works. Because that's the thing. When you're in the throes of something like that, when you're in the throes of all these questions, you don't attach to the right answer. Especially when there is no right answer. There's just answers that make sense to you at the time. And, honestly, when you're faced with that many questions and you're giving yourself all these questions, the ones that make sense, those are the ones that seem right. To me, it made sense that I was just a bad person. I was I was going down a bad road and I needed a wake-up call. There's a lot of people that may listen to this that, don't like the idea of God being that kind of punishing or someone deserving it. And here's another big secret. The word deserve is something that I think is man-made. I think what we deserve and what we get are two completely different things. We know what we deserve, but deserve is another word for dream. It's another word for a fantasy. Because sometimes things aren't fair, and some things are perfectly fair, and there's not enough good deeds that all good deeds do is make you a good person. You do it out of the kindness of your heart. You don't do it and it makes you a kind person. But yeah, that's going off on a rant all in of itself. But to get back on track, man, yeah, the whole thing was that I realized that everyone has their thing that they need to get through. And when they get through it, the way you find definition, the way you give it meaning, to go ahead and say, to quote Batman vs. Superman, is found out at a young age that this world doesn't make sense unless you force it to. And here's how you force it to. You may, like my friend that deals with suicidal thoughts, she knows the onset of that. She knows the anxiety attacks. She knows what it feels like. She feels the storm that's coming, and she takes precautions. And she knows how to work through it. She knows what she needs to do to get through it for the night, because she's done it so many times. But there are some people out there that are just beginning to have these kind of thoughts that don't have the tools that she has. Again, we can have all the tools in the world and all the support system, but that at the end of the day, it's our choice. But if we don't have the tools and we don't have the support system, that choice is taken from us, and we make a hasty one because we don't know what we're doing. Again, my point is you have no idea what your story can do for someone. Not telling him, well, you know what? They told me I was going to die in a week. I told them I was going to live 3 years. It's not putting your foot down. It's just telling him your story. You don't have to tell an uplifting, most beautiful story in the world. If someone gets something out of it, that's all you can ask for. That's what this show's all about, is just making sure that someone hears me. I don't need 1 million followers. I don't need 1,000 views. I need that one person that it makes sense to them because they're going through it. And that's another thing I've had throughout my life. I've had people come up to me. I had one girl come up to me and tell me she had cervical cancer, and she wanted to know what to do about it, what she can expect, what kind of, progress and routine is she in for. I have no idea. We both had cancer, but I don't have cervicals, so I can't really say what cervix cancer is all about as far as, a routine you got to get into and the process of it. And another friend that ended up, with a tumor in their knee said, hey, what do I do? I have cancer too. And I say, I don't know. I've never had a tumor in my knee, but I mean, that's why I'm saying, that's why there's all these unique, different and very original. That's why we have rare diseases, guys, because we're all unique. We're all original, and they're all battles that we have to fight. And unfortunately, some of us don't win, but the thing is when you have cancer, everyone else in your family and your friends, they all have cancers too. They all have cancer as well. And that's the thing is my family has even listened to some of these episodes. And I was just talking to my sister a little bit ago, and, she even said, where was I in the throes of all this? My mom has stepped in and been like, oh, man, there's so much I could add to all this, because she was with me every step of the way, every single step. And, my brother, he could tell you his version of the story. That's the thing. Cancer is a war. Okay? What you're going through, again, abuse, any kind of abuse, verbal, physical, sexual, drug abuse, an illness such as cancer, such as addiction, such as, insecurities and depression, and just all those illnesses. You don't have it alone. That's a war. There's all these individual battles going on at the same time that people in your immediate circle, talk to them. Ask them how it affected them. I'm from a small town in Broken Arrow, and in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, a suburb of Tulsa. At one point there was like 400 people in the town. That a long time ago. The place has gotten a lot bigger, but I remember when all of this was farmland. No, I really don't. But I do remember a time that when I got cancer, all I heard about at the high school I was going to was it was like the Ferris Bueller. It was like kids walking around with cans saying save Cody, and everyone's throwing money and change and whatever they got in there. Fights are breaking out because someone said something that might be against Cody. It was like it was like a big attack. Like everyone rallied around me, and it affected everyone differently. And some people couldn't handle it, some people could. And that's the thing is, by the end of it, when I went into it, I was dating this one girl, and once we got through it, we kind of lost track of each other. As far as I know, we never broke up, so I think we're still dating. But no, and me and her, we just kind of got bigger fish to fry. And after a few years of, me trying to get back on my feet and getting healthier and healthier, she kind of went on with her life. And that's the thing is everyone gets it, and not everyone stops, like you may have to get better. And, that's a hard truth to deal with as well, is that everyone's life goes on. When I came back, I really thought that I'm getting ahead of myself, but I really thought that, I would just jump back into the group of friends. We would continue conversations that we left out on. We would continue friendships. Here's the thing is new relationships had started, boyfriend, girlfriend, just buddies. I had friends that were hanging out a lot more that I never, expected. I had all these new stories that were new to me. Life didn't get put on hold. Mine did. But it really didn't get put on hold. But I mean, like, I had bigger fish to fry. I parted ways with life and time itself. I went in the hyperbolic time chamber for a little while. Good old reference there. But yeah, so I'm getting ahead of myself. So I'm gonna try to get back on track here. This is the first time I've actually recorded at night, so I'm trying to figure out how to go. So first, I want to go ahead and thank the Court of Cows. Yes, I'm going to do a shameless plug of myself and all my friends that over at the Court of Cows. Which, you kind of right now, the EHC here, everyone has cancer. I'm trying to get this off the ground still and trying to build my followers. And, so you can find all of our stuff. You can find my individual page. It's kind of hard to find right now just because, I got like 4, 14, 24 views, stuff like that. So all of it is linked to Court of Cows. So you go to facebook.com/Court of Cows. You can find all of our stuff on there, and there's something for everyone on there. We've done videos about unboxings of toys. We talk a lot about comic books. We talk a lot about comic book. It's a superhero based thing. We've done a lot of stuff on wrestling. We've done a lot of stuff on video games. So go over to facebook.com/Court of Cows. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe, and and then, from there you can go to our YouTube page where, you don't have to hear, if you kind of get sick of my beautiful, handsome, sultry. We'll go with sultry because that sounds like a more sultry word. But, if you get sick of just hearing me, well, you can hear Chris, Mike, Matt, August. You can hear all of us, and you can check out our shows like the Mighty Mike Drop, August Omega, the Chris Chronicles, good old Code Breaker. I wonder who's in charge of that show. And coming soon to a theater not a theater, but coming soon to a YouTube near you is Beyond the Mat. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on there. We got some shows. We got a ton of podcasts. We're actually up to like 31. Yeah, like 31 podcasts. Like, my goodness. So yeah, we're getting up there. Doesn't sound like a lot, but hey, man, that's a lot of podcasts. That's a lot of dudes talking. That's a lot of dudes. But yeah, I want to thank them, and through them, go to our playlist. You can find some of the stuff on Everyone Has Cancer through that. I'm really pushing the Facebook page just because the YouTube, we don't have like just a short. We don't have like youtube.com/courtofcows. We have youtube.com/a apostrophe x number sign hashtag, all that stuff. So, check us out through there. And again, through there, you can find it, the good old EHC, which is, what you're listening to now. Also, what else do I got? That good old theme song you just heard. I'm very proud of it myself. That was from a group that I was a part of, a band I was a part of, rather. In 2004, called Critical Nonsense. They were some of the most awesome guys, and I actually had 2 tracks stilled all these years later that we had recorded and never really got a chance to put vocals to. Luckily, so because I'm still a little bit, I love to hear myself talk, and I can rant on for hours, as you guys might have noticed. But yeah, like the singing voice, that's a little scary. Even though I've been doing the local metal thing for a while, there's a difference between being screaming and actually singing. It's kind of scary. But yeah, so that's what I got right now as far as plugging and getting everything off the ground. So now we're going to jump back into the story. Now, at this point in the story, we have gone through the first real thick of it. There's so much I could add to it, but I kind of want to keep it down to an hour. And later down the road, what I want to do is get some of my family in here and give their perspective. Because like I said, when you have cancer, your entire web of family and friends have cancer with you. And it affects them all differently, and you're all banded together in a war, but everyone's having their own individual battle. So, but yeah, this story takes place when I finally got home for the first time. So let's go ahead and put 30 minutes on the clock, and we'll get going. Bam, 30 minutes. All right, so what I kind of want to talk about this time is the family, the friends, the unsung heroes. And, we'll get into it a little bit more. Because at this point in time, kind of the war was over. I remember it being a very kind of like peaceful time just because I was home, but I was down to 90 pounds from, like I said, just laid there and threw up for the most part. I was a skeleton wrapped in skin. I was scared of myself, like physically, like I was terrified of how I looked. If I saw myself in the mirror, I would freak out. Like I was scary looking. My teeth were kind of sticking out because my lips were so thin. You could see my eye sockets. You could see my cheekbones. I looked like The Machinist, if you've ever seen that movie. Just very, very, very scrawny. I couldn't sit in when I went to mess around on the computer, to play a video game or something like that, or just to look up stuff online or to talk to friends. Then I had to put a big blanket on the back of the chair because if I leaned back, I could feel my spinal column, and I had to have a pretty thick pillow under my butt because I could feel my tailbone, and it really hurt because there was no cushioning. I was just, no matter how I sat, I could feel my bones. On whatever I was sitting on. When I was laying in bed, I could, I'd have to lay on my side, and I thought I was, in my mind's eye, I could see myself cutting a hole in the mattress with my shoulder. When I'd go to the restroom, at one point we started kind of blacking out the mirrors, we didn't paint them or anything, but we had like a blanket by the, because I had my bedroom, and just right across the hallway there was the bathroom. And we used to keep a sheet over the mirror, because if I saw myself, it was scary. And, I hated taking baths because there ain't no cushion in bathtubs, and and I had no cushioning to me whatsoever. Like, there was no meat. I'll quit stressing that out. But this is also a time that I'm, obviously because of all this, I'm very weak. I would get up and go to the kitchen, trying to get some of my independence back, to make myself a drink or something like that. We had like a little office chairs. Like, our kitchen looked like a little Starbucks in there, because we had, like little office chairs, like a round table. And that whole thing was because I would, to make a drink, it wasn't just get up, go make a drink, come back. It was get up, stop in the living room, catch my breath. And then once I was, reconvened and, had my constitution about me, I'd get up, walk to the kitchen, make myself a drink. But sometimes the pitcher of, whatever I was drinking or something like that would be too heavy. So this is around the time I got, just water bottles were just a lifesaver, But yeah, if I poured myself a drink, then I would have to pour it and then sit down in the chair for a little bit, just in the kitchen, and just again, get my wits about me, get my constitution about me. And then once I got the drink, go back to the living room, chill for a little bit so I can catch my breath, and then go to the bedroom. This went on until I regained my strength. And every morning, my mom, actually, I had this giant king size bed. And my mom would actually sleep in the bed with me, just because, like, if I had to get up and go to the restroom, or if I had to get up to go do something, I couldn't get up by myself. It was assisted living, man. And my mom was a saint, and, kind of sacrificed everything to be there with me every step of the way. Like, she would pick me up in the morning, and I had this big recliner in my room. Like, everything was just like, I had a big recliner, a big bed, and everything was just in there. And this is, before I left, like I said, I had a twin mattress on the floor. And that's not because, we were poor or anything like that. That was just how I preferred to sleep. But now, I needed some extra help. So I had this giant bed. I had this giant chair that I just loved. And, I would wake up, my mom would help me out of bed. Well, again, getting ahead of myself, because, again, I had a portacath put in my chest, and, that stayed in there. The portacath is something, because they don't want to stick you over and over, because obviously you have to get a lot of shots of stuff. You have to have constant fluids. And, obviously, because of that, they don't want you having track marks and stuff like that. So they put this little, looks like a little snare drum with a straw hanging off the side, just a big rubber straw. And what they would do is, I'm sure a lot of you are aware of it. If you're not, Google it. It's very easy to find. I actually still have my port somewhere, I think in my closet. But yeah, they slit your chest open, attach it to your chest wall, and then attach this tube to an artery in your heart. So basically, any kind of drug they give you, or any kind of like fluids they give you, goes into your heart and then throughout your body. So, I mean, you want to talk about, like, any kind of drug that went in there was intense. Like, there was a few times there that I would have an allergic reaction to some kind of antibiotic or something, and just be like, oh man, I'm not really feeling good. And they're like, okay, well, I feel like that's a allergic reaction, so let's go ahead and give you some Benadryl. And they give you like just a little drop of Benadryl out like a light, man. And I would just completely just conk out. And not like, I'm sure you've taken Benadryl before, and you just start dozing off, or you're just out like a light. I mean, like, the second they push this button, it's like a switch for your consciousness. They're just, and you're out. You go off like a light. And but this thing had to be flushed every day. So my mom would get up, flush my port, help me out, and that's stick a needle in there, get a tube going, get some saline in there, make sure there's a good blood flow, shoot some saline in there, and take the needle out, go wash it. We had this little thing in the kitchen, in the freezer, of like these little bitty capsules. If you ever see like a crime show like Law and Order or something, and they show like the forensics lab or something, or like you see like a scientific lab and you see like all the little vials everywhere. That's what my freezer looked like. It was that and pop ices, little popsicles. Because I'm a big advocate for those, and anyone that goes to the hospital, which is again kind of weird to say. I'm a little tired this time, but everyone loves ice cream. Everyone loves popsicles. Everyone loves ice chips. So yeah, that. Those little vials of medicine, my mom would break those out, come in, flush out my port, give me some of that medicine, and then as she's doing that, she's asking me, what I want to eat in the morning. And it was never like, okay, I want like bacon and eggs and all that. Like, it always had to be something extremely light because, not only was I scrawny on the outside, my organs were just shot. I was just born like that. That's the best way I can describe it. Is I was literally just born, and but in a very weakened adult state, and so I couldn't do anything like too crazy as far as food goes. So it was usually like chicken noodle soup or some ramen noodles just because it was easy on the stomach. Some oatmeal, just something very, very light. And then this is before, Xbox 360, PS2 was still just rocking it, and so, yeah, I would get up, go sit in my chair, and just play a video game, and that was usually my morning. There were these two people that, again, with unsung heroes, Karen, and, oh man, I cannot believe I'm blanking on his name. I feel so horrible about it. But we had these two friends of the family that, used to live down the street from us. That, God, he was so cool too, and I can't believe I forgot his name. But they had come, like I said, my room was upstairs before, and, they had moved me downstairs and set up this room and all this, and, they had recorded all these movies for me, so I just had, like, this is, right on the verge of DVD, like getting big and all that stuff. So, I had all these videos just recorded, and it was just all these movies that, were just my movies. So I'd have my movies, and then I'd have, my video games, and then I'd have my music, So, like, I had this whole setup, and it was just supposed to entertain me throughout the day. And that's what it did, man. That's kind of how I lived for a little while. Just kind of like, that's why I kind of start the show with, this is one day at a time, because that's kind of how we had to live it. At this time, I had weird, like, taste in video games. For some reason, I was just all about, like, the second I got out, all I wanted to do was play Sonic the Hedgehog. And Kirby, Kirby Superstar. So that was, Vintage Stock was like the only kind of like retro video game place. So I would ask my mom, hey, is there any way you can find this game? And she would, call around, ask for it, and be like, okay, I'm gonna run to Vintage Stock, or are you okay? And she'd run out to Vintage Stock and buy some game for me. Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles being one of them. I played the snot out of that, got really good at it. That's another thing that you'll get good at if you have to spend a lot of time in a hospital bed is video games. That was where in the hospital room was the first time I beat Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time by myself. Me and my brother had beaten it, but I beat it front and back by myself. I beat the first Metroid on NES, like front and back by myself, and I think Metal Gear as well. So yeah, it was a lot of playing video games, man, and it was a lot of I never really did much reading. Comic books, yes. I read a lot of like real old school Batman, real old school like Marvel. Like my brother had this stack of like Wolverine and X-Men comic books, and he just kind of like shifted them into my room. I had a bunch of like Spawn and Sonic the Hedgehog because my mom used to stop at Quick Trip on the way home every single day, and this is back in the days, again showing my age, is the days of the comic book racks. So she would grab me a copy of Spawn, grab me a copy of Sonic, and come home, and that was every day for the longest time. She'd stop at Quick Trip before she got home every day, and and she still does that. So, but of course they don't have comic book racks anymore. But that's okay because I have Amazon. Oh my God, that is just a plug. Ugh. And that was completely indeliberate. But anyway, yeah. So this is also during the time that it wasn't just hunky dory and peaceful. There were times that I would start getting sick. Just pretty much guaranteed my toxicity for a very long time. Some mornings were just worse than others. I'd wake up and just feel sick to my stomach, have to go in there and puke, and had to eat light, so there wasn't always a lot to go. And when that happens, you start throwing up stuff that your body needs. And, again, I know it gets a little gross sometimes, but I got so accustomed to throwing up that now throwing up means nothing to me. Like, I have genuinely, and I mean this wholeheartedly, I have, like, sat there in the middle of a conversation with someone outside, puked, and then just continued the conversation, while they're looking at me like, oh my God, are you okay? And be like, yeah, I just threw up. Yeah. Like a UFC fighter will be like, oh yeah, I just broke my arm, elbow sticking out of my, the joint sticking out of the skin, but it's all right. I just get some ice on it, I could use some Bengay, and because you just get used to it, man. You get used to the pain, you get used to the sickness, and you don't always have a good attitude about it, but I could throw up and be upset about it, or I could just, throw up and, continue on with my day. But, sometimes I would throw up a little, one too many times, and my, my blood oxygen level would get down. I would start getting really dehydrated, and, and have to go up. Like, the second the fever started going up, the second it broke double digits, I had to go back to the Pink Plaza Hotel, which is what we called St. Francis, and there in Tulsa, so I had to go right back up there, spend a night in St. Francis, and sometimes it'd be one night, some nights it'd be 2 or 3, but yeah, we'd have to get back level, get back in the green, and head back home, and that went on for 2 years. When they told me, I made the mistake of asking, like, how long is the healing process of, like, coming back up here and doing all this? Because this is also in the time, I guess I'm saying that a lot this time, but every Monday I had to go to St. Francis, like, no ifs, ands, or buts, because I had to get my blood tested, and I had to get my port flushed. And if my if my red blood cell count was low, if my platelets were low, I had to get a bag of platelets, had to get a blood transfusion. It was a constant thing, and it was like, like once a month I had to get a spinal tap to check, my spinal fluid, make sure it wasn't cancerous. That, again, like I said with the throwing up, I got so used to doing spinal taps. I hated getting knocked out for it because it just, I was sick for a few days, and sometimes I would get a little too sick from it because that whole guaranteed toxicity of my city meant that, I would throw up a couple times, and once I got home, have to go right back up there. Dude, I had Dr. K and Dr. Hum on speed dial, and I got used to talking to them on the phone, because that's what I had to do, and it sucks. It's not a fun time. No one really wants to go to the hospital, but to this day, because of it, like if I go there, if I go because I have a high temp that I can't get under control, and they start, the second they put me in a bed, I'm like, man, they're going to keep me. Like, it's always in the back of my mind, they're going to keep me. Even though legally, if I get up and leave, they can't stop me. They can be like, I really implore that that's a bad idea, but they can't stop you. But still, I'm like, they're going to lock the door, they're going to keep me in here, they're going to, force me to sleep here. This continued on, and, just all I could do was just play video games, eat when I could, go to the hospital when I have to, and just carry on. And, that was Brian. Oh, my God. Yeah, Brian and Karen. I hope that's his name. Oh, man, I'm going to feel so bad about it. Brian was so awesome. It's just older guy, like that dude loves some computer games, and just 90s dad through and through, just like a kind of like a curly mullet with a big old mustache. One of the nicest guys. Always, hey man, how you doing, man? You doing all right? And oh my goodness, I love them, but. Yeah, I used to go over to Brian and Karen's house, and he'd be like, "Hey man, you ever played Doom? Here, let me get you Doom." And he'd burn me a copy of Doom, and I'd go home and play it. And he's, "Hey man, you ever play Turok? That's a good game. You don't have an N64? Here you go." And go get you an N64, and here's a copy of the game. And just he was like that before I got sick. So after I got sick, that dude. I'm not saying he had all the money in the world, but good Lord, he had he would just come up with just another box of VHSs, just old movies like Perfect Storm and Green Mile and Forrest Gump, probably like 4 copies of Forrest Gump. But yeah, that's whittled down, but yeah, I still have, some of the old VHSs that he got me, and some of them were just like Perfect Storm. It was just weird choices. But man, I may go over a little bit on time, but this is one thing I don't want to ever let go of, is that I got so many. I'll touch on this more next episode, but I got so many letters and so many drawings and and dogfight outside, but no, I got a lot of donations. Where my dad worked at the time, they ended up raising $500, just cash money. It was just like a big stack of ones, fives, and tens, and that was just for me that they just did that. I had all these cans that said, Save Cody on it. They were just big old change jars, heavy as heavy could be, and and just my hospital room when I left is one of the processes we had to do is just take down all the letters. I had this really big collage that all my friends did that was just hey man, it's different here without you. The funniest part to me about all that, though, is that I would have letters and prayers, and everything was, "You're in my prayers." So some of it was, it was I don't want to say it was fun, but it was definitely interesting reading these, because you would see when you read all these, it's like a yearbook you're reading, but like that they wrote at your funeral. Like some people just, you could see how they were coping with it. And I had some people that were like, "You are in my constant prayers," and people that didn't even like me. I'll get into that in a sec, but I'd have, my true friends, like my, the friends that, like Matt, Chancho, Chris, Jared, all those guys, Dwayne, would write me something like, "Hey, bro," well, not then, "Hey, man, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll bring you, this CD," and, "Oh, hey, I saw Dwayne sign this. He can't spell anything. I'm surprised he got Cody right. Ha, 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 get well soon, Matt." And, "Hey, dude, this is Chris. I just wrote a song that I want to show it to you. I can't wait for you to for me and you to hang out so we can do this." My buddy Alan, who we called Dr. Khan, would be like, a little telling, but they'd be like, I think his was like, my mom wasn't very pleased about it because it said something to the extent it's like, "Dude, how do you have cancer? Don't you smoke hella weed?" And just cracked a joke that like how can you have cancer? I thought me and you have smoked together, and you smoked a lot, didn't you? And and then there were some people that just signed like, "Sorry for your loss," and I just had this picture in my mind's eye of like, hey, like the teacher in the morning, does roll call, and then she hands out pieces of paper, and everyone's got to sign it, and they're going to send it off to me. And no one's, and some people would just, would actually, they'd bear it all. And man, I'd have some that were just like, "Get well soon," and I'd have some that were just like letters, like 4-page letters, just telling me everything they thought of me, everything they wanted for me, and how they were praying for me. But there were so many people that it bugged me, because they weren't true to themselves, and that's kind of hard to explain. But I'll give you an example. Here's a story I've told some of my friends. There was this girl when I was still when I was still in high school before I got sick. I'll call her D. Because, again, don't want to scrutinize anyone. I haven't talked to this girl in, like, a century. but yeah, there's this girl. I wanted to date her. I really liked her. I told her I liked her. We wrote notes amongst each other. Really trying to cut this story short. But she ended up, I ended up calling her one night, and this dude answers the phone. And he's like, "Hey, this is Dee's boyfriend. Don't call here again. She's taken." And I was like, "Oh." And I'm not that kind of guy, so I was just like, "Okay, well, I'll be honest with you, man. If I'd have known she was taken, I wouldn't have even called her in the first place. So, yeah, don't worry about it. You won't hear from me again." Get off the phone with him. He's like, "Yeah, I better not." And, hangs up on me. Maybe 15 minutes later, I get another phone call. It's D. And she's like, "Hey." And I was like, "Hey, yeah, I didn't know you had a boyfriend, so I don't think we should be talking. I kind of wish you would have told me that before you gave me your number." And, she ended up being like, "Well, that wasn't my boyfriend, that was my brother." And I was like, "Okay, that's pretty freaking gross." And she was like, "No, I'm," and she actually, giggled a little bit, and I was like, "What? So what's going on?" And she was like, "No, I asked my brother to call to act like my boyfriend because I don't want to, I don't want you, I don't like you like that." And I was like, "Okay, well, you know how you just said you don't like me like that?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "That's all you had to say." Yeah, and I was like, "Yeah, I don't mind just being friends." And, she was just a big cowgirl. I was a goth kid, but I accepted everybody. And she was just like, well, that's the thing. I don't even want to be your friend. I kind of don't want to be seen with you. You're kind of bad for my rep. And I was like, oh. All right, well, to the people that you really can't stand, maybe you shouldn't give out your number. So, and, next time just tell the person no. You could have just saved yourself a whole lie and a whole disappointment by just saying 2 letters, N-O. And, would have saved me some time, definitely. So I told you that story to tell you this. Suddenly I get cancer, man, and I'm getting all these letters from D. I've always known you were a brave person. I've always looked up to you, and just really really trying to make things right and, get her karmatic justice, it just does not want to be the one that said, but that's the thing. I didn't want her to be like, hey, I hope you die. I would have just rather her not sign it, I understand she needed forgiveness and all that, and you got to have forgiveness in your heart. You got to be like, hey, look, there's no way you would have known that this was going to happen. But that goes 2 ways. That's a normal saying, hey, there's no way you would have known this was going to happen. But when you don't know that's going to happen, and you really don't know what's going to happen. You really don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, And I'm not saying she should have dated me. I'm saying she should have said no, and now, because of her not doing that and the last time we had spoken, all I'm seeing is her trying to earn brownie points, her trying to be a good person, and her just looking for forgiveness because of the fact that I had cancer. So basically, if I would have never gotten sick, she would have never felt bad about it, never given me a second thought. But do you get what I'm saying? She could have just remained silent, but because of how, now she's saying she always thought I was brave, always thought I was strong, always looked up to me, has always prayed for me. Well, the last time we spoke, you told me you didn't even want to know me, so I don't think you even wanted to talk to me. So sometimes it's better to just remain silent, I guess is the lesson here. And man, when I was finally up and going and up and running, well, not running, it actually was another 4 years before I could actually run. But I would have, there's my alarm. So it looks like we're going a little bit into overtime. But no, when I finally was up and running, bald as bald could be, I was allowed to go to the formal, the prom, if you will. And, everyone knows what the formal is. And I went in a wheelchair. I had this really dope button-up Goku shirt that was flashy as flashy could be. And Super Saiyan 3 Goku on it, and these spot sunglasses like the drummer from Letterman, and just like I said, just think of that guy, but younger, just bald as bald can be. Put a flashy Hawaiian shirt that has Goku on it, and that I got at Hot Topic, and because like I said, I kind of had a lot of money at that point, so. Anytime I went somewhere, just hop in a wheelchair, get wheeled around and just kind of be like, oh, I'd kind of like that shirt. I'd kind of like those glasses. I'd kind of like, this, that, or the other. Because the donations all went to me. So, yeah, I'd have all that. Went to the formal, saw people that I hadn't seen in a very long time. I remember running into, Jared just wheeled me around, and we just had a blast. I just kind of got wheeled around with my friends, and I would get up. They'd mess around with the wheelchair for a second. I'd sit back down because I was exhausted from standing up for 5 minutes. And, man, I remember just running into a couple people that despised me. Didn't get along. It dang near came to blows a few times, and when we were still in high school. I'm again not going to name any names, not even going to tell any stories about them. That's surprising, but yeah, they're people that would come and be like, "Hey, bud, how you been? Man, I've been really hoping for you, really rooting for you." No, you have not. You've been rooting for me because you couldn't stand the fact that you didn't like the guy that might be dying soon. You have just figured out that I'm a good person, and at it took me facing my own mortality for you to realize that life is sincere. No, dude, I'm not giving this to you. You just kind of have to have that lesson and just live with that. Hopefully those people like D, like a couple of guys that I ran into that, be honest, that reached out to shake my hand, and I was like, no, dude, I'm all right. Because that's the thing. Like, they may just be looking, all of them looking at me like I was a 3-year-old. Like, hey, bud, how you doing, pal? Oh, my gosh, you were this big the last time I saw you. Well, the last time I saw you, you were a prick. You hated me. You despised me. And that hasn't changed for me, man. Like, I went and had this experience, but, I remember the last conversation you and I had. Like, I know what I face now, and, I know what is sincere in life now, and I think you've figured out what is cherishable. And hopefully that'll be, that's a lesson to someone. If you don't like someone, that doesn't mean you got to treat them like garbage. Some people just don't mix, and those people, just leave them alone. You don't gotta pick on them. You don't gotta assert your dominance over them. But this is, again, let me just stress this by saying I'm 33 years old now. This is talking about high school days. The high school hierarchy, hard place to be. As a lot of you will know, all of that's a whole battle in and of itself. But yeah, dude, if you don't like someone. Yeah, I'm not saying you ever wish them dead. I'm just saying that, like, if something happens to them, you need to understand that if you go up trying to absolve yourself, that's what it's going to look like. If you go up saying, hey, I've always thought you were strong. No, you have not, and you and I both know it. If you want to go and say, hey, what I would rather you do is remain silent, but if you're going to say anything, look for your own forgiveness. And like I said, that's kind of a hard pill to swallow for the people that are in these kind of situations, because dude, I had bigger fish to fry. You feeling good about yourself was not on my priority list. Okay. If you didn't want to feel the way you did, then, don't be a prick, or, just leave well enough alone, and, but if you come up to me, and say, hey, look, this is really, I've kind of seen the light with all this, and, life is a precious thing. And, you going through all this has kind of made me realize that I viewed you all wrong, and I couldn't go through what you're going through. I've had friends that have gone off and, that I didn't really like, that kind of got under my skin, went off, became a Marine, or joined like the National Guard, or something, and then come back and they're a changed person, and they're just like, hey, dude, I was a jerk for a really long time. And then it's just, dude, hey, we're kids. Don't worry about it. But yeah, like it's, if you go up to someone that is, going through this, and you're like, oh, well, hey, before you go, I don't want to be the jerk that, left the water dirty, I kind of want to air out our laundry. That's not for them. Maybe they don't want to. I know I didn't. I wanted to stick with the positivity, and I wasn't there, like, it's kind of like, I am not saying I'm Jesus, but I mean, it's like people going up to Jesus after he came back after being crucified and being like, hey, so I didn't know you were actually the Son of God. So can we, now that I know that, now that it took you dying for me to figure that out, can we just, 86 this whole thing? Which is a bad example because, he does. He forgives everyone. But, I'm a person, dang it. I'm not God. So, get forgiveness later on, but if you left, if you left the water muddy with you and someone, this is a good reason why you shouldn't. Is because no matter what you're going through, someone else is going through it worse, or they will go through it worse, or they're just going. Everyone is just trying to get through life. Everyone is just trying to get through, their day. Everybody is taking it one day at a time because the past doesn't exist anymore, and the future does not exist till it happens. And I mean that's all I really have to say about that. Just. Stay true to yourself, and if you feel it heavy on your heart that you want to get forgiveness or you want to forgive someone, then do it. Don't wait till they're facing their own mortality. Don't wait till they have a lot on their plate to be like, hey, so before you go, we're good, right? I've had friends that have committed that have committed suicide that you always wish you had more time with them, but you only wish you had more time because now the time's gone, so all you can really do is just treat everyone, with respect, and know that if they aren't a person that's important to you, they are a person that's important to somebody else. Like, how many people have you met that you thought were a complete and total douche bag or a complete and utter B-word, and they're married or they got a kid, or they have a dog that they post about on Facebook that absolutely adores them. Everyone is cherished by someone. So if you don't like someone, just leave them alone. You don't have to call them names. You don't got to pick on them. Just leave them be. And maybe, just maybe, somewhere down the road, you'll change. The situation will change. You might get a good friend out of it. I know me and Chris, we've, again, just using first names, we've had our differences over the years, but we've had a lot of good moments. And I've never wished anything bad on the guy because I know that, what if something changes down the road? I don't, maybe you grew apart from someone and maybe you don't see that person as much as you'd like to, but someone does. Someone does love them. Someone does think highly of them. And you may not see it, but you don't have to because it's not yours to see. Okay? So, that's all I have for you guys today. Man, we still have a lot to get through. We have a lot to go because next time, man, we're going to get into the glory days of just not having to go to school and, just waiting for my hair to grow back, getting peach fuzz on my head. Good old Christmas season is around the corner, and we got a few more illnesses to talk about because there's one in particular that one night, like I said, that, sometimes I get a little bit more sick than others and have to get rushed up to the hospital. There was one night I can remember in particular that was a very, very rough night. One that stood out above the rest as far as the time that I had to get rushed to the hospital because I was too sick. And there's one thing I did leave out that we're going to talk about next time. And it's the part that I hated the most about the entire healing process is this, not the methotrexate, which is the type of chemotherapy. You used to have to take a handful of pills every day. This pill's for this pill's for that, this pill's for this. 16 little pills in your hand of methotrexate. This is pure chemotherapy. You got to take that. But there's one thing above that. I would take chemotherapy any day of the week if it meant I didn't have to go on a round of steroids, high dose steroids. If my mother is listening to this, or if anyone that is close to me that knew me at the time will tell you they probably rolled their eyes or took a deep, oh man, because they know that me and steroids, that is the Joker to my Batman. You want to see me at a completely unstable way? Give me some of those. I despise those things, always will, and there is nothing that keeps me up at night more than worrying that I'm going to have to go on some steroids. So that's my story so far of my battles and my wars. I hope this story helps you. Now go, help someone with yours.